Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Gorecom, in which we speak with small cap executives about important news at their company. With us today, for the first time ever, Dan Weslak, CEO of Blockchain Foundry. The company trades on the CSC under the stock symbol BCFN. And for those of you new to the story, that's going to be a lot of you because we just kind of started work with Blockchain Foundry. We all remember the crash of blockchain stocks a couple of years back, which was actually more crash of blockchain, what I like to call pretenders, who are using the term just to build stock promotion as opposed to building actual blockchain companies. Like the dot-com crash of 2000, which bankrupted the dot-com companies, but gave birth to the likes of Google, Amazon, LinkedIn, because they built actual utility and value. The same can be expected of the blockchain crash and its resurgence. We see it coming. There's no doubt about it. And Blockchain Foundry is a leading North American blockchain development firm, more than just lip service. They just brought revenue for the 9 months ended September 30th, $1.1 million, up 113% year-over-year growth. Net income, $140,000. What's even more important, that's a $610,000 improvement because they're at a loss last year. So income's going the right direction, revenue's going the right direction. And part of that is a development agreement with a large Canadian financial institution that they couldn't name, valued about $400,000. They partnered with Binance, the largest digital asset trading platform on the planet. Bottom line, Blockchain Foundry, real products, real customers, real revenues, real income. That's the Blockchain 2.0 company we're looking for. Dan, welcome to the show, man.
George, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here and looking forward to the discussion.
Look, we are too, because we're big fans of blockchain. We think that's going to be one of the disruptive technologies that defines the next decade. But more than just what I'm saying, what you're saying, I'm going to do a quick screen share here because I want to show people what other people are saying, as I think this is important. And this is the Blockchain Foundry Hub in Gorecom. We're going to get you talk about this in a second, Dan. But for everyone at home, Jack Ma, the co-founder of Alibaba, said blockchain tech could change our world more than people imagine. That's quite the profound statement. Vitalik Buterin, who's the founder of Ethereum, whereas most technologies tend to automate workers on the periphery doing menial tasks, blockchains automate away the center. Instead of putting the taxi driver out of a job, blockchain puts Uber out of a job and lets the taxi drivers work with the customers directly. Gotta love that. And finally, Jamie Dimon, we don't need any introduction for him, JP Morgan. I probably shouldn't say any more about cryptocurrency. Blockchain, on the other hand, is real. So, Dan, what do you have to say about the future of blockchain? But before you do that, give everyone at home a layman description of what is blockchain at the end of the day.
Yeah. So great questions. And the way I like to describe blockchain to the uninitiated, right, is that it is essentially at its heart, it's a distributed ledger. It's a distributed database that multiple parties essentially ensure is not being tampered with, right? At its very simplest layer. There are ways to leverage it in more advanced ways, such as smart contracts and things like that. But even at that layer, all that's happening is you have a distributed ledger that is storing the state of a smart contract across a number of different actors. And all of those actors ensure that the state of that contract between them is the same and there is no variation in that state, which the value of is that you now don't have to trust organizations aren't manipulating their data, because the blockchain provides you that layer of trustless confidence that the data you're seeing is accurate, because there are a consortium of nodes or other people running the database that serve to ensure that the data is all valid and essentially immutable, right? Which means that once that data has been written to the database and validated as matching the state of other people on the blockchain, that data cannot be changed. And if that data is changed by an actor, or an actor tries to change that data, that actor will actually be banned from the network, and their incoming data that's trying to manipulate the state of the blockchain will be rejected.
And why is that so important at the end of the day? I mean, look, here I am. I'm a layman. My name is George. And right now, the way the world works is I've got data on my laptop as I'm talking to you. I've got data at Google because I use Google Photos. You know,
Mhm.
it seems like everything operates just fine for me.
Yep.
Why should I care at the end of the day that blockchain is going to be maybe the new operating system? Why should I even want it?
Yeah, there's so many layers to the answer to that question. I mean, at the level you're talking about relative to your personal information, there's an entire movement happening in the blockchain space called self-sovereign identity. Actually, Blockchain Foundry is one of the founding members of an organization spearheaded by Microsoft called the Decentralized Identity Foundation. What that organization is doing is essentially establishing a W3C specification for what decentralized identity looks like. So, to go back to your question, what's the problem with having all of your data up in Google and up in Equifax and up in Facebook and Twitter and
Huh.
all these other places?
Seems like
Uh,
it's working fine. Why should I want to change?
it works fine until attackers decide that they want to access the data in those company stores, and then it suddenly fails catastrophically, right? I think one of the best examples I always reference is the Equifax hack, where
Right.
Equifax, the custodian of so much critical data relative to your personal information, credit
Credit.
scores,
You're gonna home
employment
and not
history.
Equifax. You should. Personal credit information is the big thing at Equifax.
Right, exactly. And now attackers not only have gained access to all that information, but they've put it up for sale, on the dark web. And if self-sovereign identity had really caught on and everybody was using it, then there wouldn't be that centralized sort of honeypot that is perfect for attackers to go after and get a large sort of payday in that they get all these users' credit
Right.
information.
Right. So
Um,
the problem is right now data is stored at one place. It's Fort Knox, and as
right,
long as we get to Fort Knox, we can take all the gold at the end of the day.
exactly.
That's the problem. Even though we think it works fine, if someone hacks into my doctor's office computers, they can get access to my health records. If they hack into my Agoracom drives, they can get access to all our confidential client information. Right. So this way, you're saying by spreading it out, there isn't one central place to attack, to steal, to change any of that.
Right. And not only it's not just the fact that it's being spread out, but it's being spread out in such a way that it is still verified using cryptography and the blockchain. And so it's not just a matter of spreading the data out, but it's
Sure.
spreading the data out and then providing a mechanism for validating that data when it comes to other parties interacting with it.
So how big is the blockchain today? And would I even know, for example, let me ask these questions first. How big is blockchain today? Where do you think it's going? Obviously, the likes of Jack Ma think it's going to potentially change our lives. Where do
Mhm.
you see it today? Where's it going?
So blockchain is really big today, but I think there are a lot of different ways to measure the size of it, right? Market cap, total number of transactions in the blockchain, total number of wallets with a positive balance. There are a lot of sort of different ways that people try to measure it, but from a sort of high level perspective, where I would say it's at today is still very focused on value transfer. Everyone, when they think of blockchain, thinks of Bitcoin and moving money from A to B and how to reduce costs in remittances and eliminating middlemen, essentially, when you're trying to move money between parties, right? That is kind of just the tip of the iceberg in
Right.
terms of what blockchain can be used for. And so, where it's at today, I think is still very much uh, something that is an interest of the financial sector. And how do we reduce costs related to remittances? How do we eliminate middlemen? How do we take certain processes that involve humans today and put those into a smart contract so that we can eliminate the human and eliminate additional costs and fees that come with that? And so, what we're seeing in the space right now is this movement called decentralized finance, or DeFi is what some people refer
Right.
to it
Or
as.
I'd like called it DeFi, but you're right.
Yeah,
Definitely. Yeah. Okay.
DeFi, DeFi, I'm not sure exactly, right?
But
But
DEFI for everyone at home. That
yes.
either no matter how you pronounce it, DEFI.
Yep. And so, that is in my mind, I see that as an extension of the whole blockchains are good for value transfer. And so sort of an evolution or an iteration of that thinking is, okay, they're good for value transfer. Now maybe they're good for managing more of the aspects of how that value is managed and transferred. And that's really where things like automated market making and these platforms with, kind of crazy interest rates are surfacing, because you can put your cryptocurrency into them, and then other actors in the system who are needing a loan or needing some financing can leverage those systems to essentially borrow your money at a really high interest rate. You earn the interest from them borrowing the money, and the contracts that underlie the system ensure that you ultimately are not going to lose that money. So
Right.
now,
It knows it knows exactly who it's going to, and the person that's going to knows exactly who they're paying back, and it's all done seamlessly, right? That's the idea, right,
yeah,
Dan?
in the contract captures all of the sort of specifics of the agreement, of the terms of that loan, right? So in the contract, it says that within the next 90 days, that loan has to be paid back, or else XYZ happens. There penalties are incurred, or interest rate changes, or those types of things.
And that's
And
what I
so
love about it. Because right now, if I want to loan, if I want to put $1 million on the street and loan it out, I got to find intermediary, like a broker. I said, hey, I want to loan out $1 million, and then, but don't loan out more than $50,000 to any one particular person, so I can spread through this. But they got to go find that person. That person got to find them. There's got to be paperwork that side. Then there's got to be paperwork on my side.
yep.
Then I've got to check my bank every month to make sure is the money actually going in. If
Yeah.
all of it isn't there, who missed the payment? It's real. It's difficult, but blockchain, from what I understand, in that for example, would almost do that automatically. I've got $1 million sitting on the blockchain. There is a contract in place that says someone with a credit rating, that checks against Equifax, which is built in.
Yeah.
Someone with a credit rating above this can borrow no more than this at this rate. And if it all mix, bang, it just goes. And
Yeah,
it just
exactly.
happens, right?
And there are already platforms out there that provide aspects of that, right? Like Uniswap is one. It's more of a trading platform. BlockFi is another one where I haven't seen their smart contracts. My understanding is smart contracts are a component of their system, but they're another one of those places where you can take essentially stagnant crypto, put it into a smart contract that has those rules you explained. People can come and borrow from that contract, and you earn interest against those borrowings.
And I don't even know they're doing it, because the blockchain is doing it all automatically.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, beautiful.
And you can then, depending on which system you use and the specifics of the contracts used in that system, you can even withdraw your financing at any point.
Sure,
so
of course.
you're not beholden to keep your money in the system for as long as this one person is borrowing the money, because it's a pool of money, right? And so if you want to pull your money out, there's other money in the pool that can be used to facilitate, making that person's loan whole.
So essentially, we're creating almost what blockchain is going to be able to do in so many different applications. We're just talking about one here, but in so many different applications. Like if I want to sell my house, you're essentially removing so many of the middlemen and just creating a frictionless and a system you can rely on at the end of the day.
Exactly. And even in that example you walked through earlier, where you said, you're applying for a loan, the smart contract has to go check with Equifax. There's already even systems being developed in that respect to decentralize that, right? Like there's a concept of oracles, where there are multiple parties who are checking data from a specific data source, and you refer to the oracle to ensure that all of their information matches, and then you can use the information from the oracle. The benefit of that is for something like market prices, for example. You could have an oracle that gives you the current USD Bitcoin conversion price, right? That data can be ascertained from a number of centralized sources, right? And so what an oracle can do is have a number of actors participating in that oracle who fetch the data from different sources, but ultimately that data should all be within a certain threshold of each other, right? It's not like on one exchange, Bitcoin should be worth $1,000. On another exchange, it's worth $1 million. And so what the Oracle system does is it makes sure that there's a consistency in data amongst the participants in the Oracle who are providing that information. And so, you know, the vision for the future of the system is not that you're ever going to be reaching out to any centralized system like Equifax. You might be reaching out to an Oracle for certain types of information. For other types of information, you might be leveraging self-sovereign identity directly. You know, like the how do you prove that this individual has a certain credit score, or this individual has a certain employment history. Those are all things that would go into verifiable credentials that get attached to your self-sovereign identity. And so then when it comes time to provide your proof that you are employed, your credit score is XYZ, the way that those proofs are being constructed now allows smart contracts to interact with them such that you can prove that you have a certain credit score without the system ever contacting Equifax.
Yeah, that's what I love, like just like that. And you're talking about in nanoseconds.
Right. And removing, not only are we removing friction, but we're removing vulnerabilities as well, right? Equifax is in and of itself a vulnerability because it can be attacked. And then you have the speed of communicating with that network as well. Both of those things can be improved by using blockchain.
So how long until you think the blockchain really starts to become part of my life where I can actually see it? It's like I can actually participate in those kind of things. Are we a year away? Are we 5 years away?
It's hard to say because there is definitely a balance with blockchain between ease of use that users have come to expect with centralized systems,
of course,
and the benefits that the benefits of blockchain do come with some trade-offs right now in respect to ease of use. And so there are a number of players, blockchain Foundry included, looking to simplify the process of interacting with blockchain-based services, really to the point where users don't need to know that a blockchain is behind all of this. They can know that it's being secured by that technology, but we want to get away.
I'm just going about my business, doing what I do normally. The interface hasn't changed very much. The experience hasn't changed very much. It just all happens easier at the end of the day.
Exactly. That's the goal, right? And being able to have people use usernames and passwords to access this information. In today's world, you're stuck remembering a 16 to 24 word mnemonic phrase that's essentially a bunch of random words that control all of your money or all of your identity information. Or there are even more complex methods of accessing your account, essentially, right? Private keys. We're trying to simplify that so that the user can leverage paradigms that they're used to today, username, password, forgot my password, that kind of thing, to access these systems while still providing all of the security and immutability that blockchain.
So in front of the curtain, it looks the same. Behind the curtain is all blockchain, and I don't have to really concern myself with that as long as it's easy for me to use.
Right, exactly.
Let's switch over to you. Let's put you under the microscope here a little bit. You put out your Q3 numbers. Anytime a small cap does over $1 million in revenue in a quarter on its own, that's legit to me. That's a nice number. You guys are up 113% on that revenue year over year. What do you attribute that to? I mean, that's big growth. What do you attribute it to?
So a lot of it has been learning, right? This is an entirely new space, an entirely new market. When we started the company back in late 2016, early 2017, it was right at the peak of, that bubble that we had back then.
Sure.
Where I agree 100% with your comments from earlier, where, that bubble was driven by a lot of pretenders, and, those that remain are really the ones that are trying to do that stuff for real. What I would caution investors about right now is, there is a new wave of pretenders, right? That have come with the DeFi, DeFi movement, right? These projects that show up overnight, have very little, anonymous devs or no information on their devs at all, somehow they collect millions of dollars, and
Man.
ultimately they all deflate, right? If they don't just naturally kind of fall off on price, more nefarious things are at play. Like, they have developers doing this thing called a rug pull on investors, where they put all this money into a smart contract, and then that developer uses their access to the smart contract to essentially steal all of the user's money, right? And so what we have done over the life of the company really is changed our approach to the market. When we first started back in the early days, we were really focusing on those new market incumbents, those ICOs and stuff, and trying to see how we could help them really develop what they told investors they were going to develop, or create a white paper better describing what they had planned to develop to investors and help them on their journey in that respect. What we quickly learned was that not only did the actors on that side of the fence not have a clear idea about how they were going to use blockchain technology, but in a lot of cases, these people were not technologists at all. They just heard about blockchain. If they put together a company around it, they think they can raise a bunch of money. And so, how can we help them create a white paper that'll facilitate that? That's not what we do as a company. That's not what Blockchain Foundry focuses on. And B, we ran into a lot of issues with those companies where they thought they had all this money coming in the door from an ICO, and they ultimately didn't. The ICO fell apart, or the SEC started clamping down on them, or other regulatory agencies within their jurisdiction started clamping down on them, and all of a sudden the $1 million project they had come to us with is, oh, sorry, we don't have the money, we can't proceed, that kind of thing, right? So in the early days, it was a lot of tough, hard learned lessons in that kind of respect. And also, we'd sign these contracts, we'd spin up a team for those contracts, and then those
You'd be losing money.
Yeah, those
you paid people, you didn't bring in revenue. That wasn't good.
Cancel. You got people on staff. What do you do, right? So we've really changed our approach to how we approach the market, and even how we approach prospective clients. Really, ICOs are not something that we really play with anymore. We really are more focused on real organizations that have a business today, that are Fortune 500 is really what we're trying to target. And
okay, so you're not targeting the Agorcoms or decent sized business. You're going after the guys at the top of the food chain.
Guys at the top of the food chain who are looking to leverage the benefits of blockchain technology within their organization, but don't know really the best way to go about that. And what we've found is that there's a lot of sort of meat on the bone there when it comes to that specific approach, because a lot of these Fortune 500 companies actually have departments or internal organizations themselves that, sometimes it's called the innovation group, sometimes it's called the fringe technology group, what have you, but they already have teams that are trying to better understand how their organization can leverage this technology. And
because the world is full of blockchain experts, right? That's right. That's the funny part. I know I need blockchain for Agoracom, but I'm not sure exactly what I need. So I've got to start reaching out to people like Blockchain Foundry, and then hopefully you can come in and give me that value proposition. I found the quote interesting from the press release. Said, "This outcome was a direct result of increased client development activity." Okay, that makes sense. I think that's kind of what you touched on there, as well as growing market acceptance of blockchain technology. So I find that latter part more interesting, because the first part, increased client development, I think we're all assuming you're out there trying to build your book, prospects, trying to build your pipeline, and you're obviously doing a very good job of it. So bravo. But I'd like to hear more about the growing market acceptance of blockchain technology. So you're saying that 2 years ago, you might have pitched George on, "Hey, George, I think you should be putting Agoracom on the blockchain." And maybe I wasn't really up to it back then, but now I'm more likely to say, "Hey, Dan, come on in." Why is that acceptance changing now? Why is there greater acceptance? What do you think?
So I think it's a few things. I think it's one, if we were to talk to you, George, and really blockchain isn't a good fit for your company, there are not a lot of benefits to be had for your specific use case, we'll just tell you that. We're not going to waste an hour of our time, your time or our time, trying to convince you of a way that you could possibly use blockchain technology with Agoracom, but it would just be a superfluous kind of implementation
Right.
to, pad our wallets, right? We would just tell you, look, blockchain's not really a good fit. If you have any of these types of use cases, then we might have something more to talk about. But right now, probably not the best time, In other cases where we do see a good fit for blockchain technology, we outline to those clients where we see potential for blockchain technology within the use cases that currently exist within their organization. And we give them some examples of, if you're spending $1 million on remittances right now, if we were to develop a blockchain-based remittance solution for you, you could possibly save this much money, right? And so helping clients understand the actual cost savings or cost benefit that their organization will experience by leveraging blockchain technology, I think is another key strategy that we've implemented in the past.
Look, I think most businesses are like that, right? Agoracom, hey, this is why you should be using Agoracom. This is what we can do for you, etc. But I'd really like maybe just ask it differently. Obviously, there's more willingness now to have blockchain Foundry and an ABC blockchain, XYZ blockchain to come in. Why is the attitude on my side? Why is the market acceptance on my side starting to change? And how much different has that changed than what you saw just last year or a couple of years ago? Because obviously it's a great thing for the company if George's picking up the phone for you and saying, hey, I'm open to blockchain coming in. Where's that coming from?
I think it's coming from more and more sort of success stories being published about use cases around blockchain, and those use cases not only being in the value transfer space, right? Like there's lots of success stories going on around goods tracking and provenance, right? There are success stories happening around digital identity and self-sovereign identity, and we're part of some of those success stories. A lot more I wish I could say about that, but we're working with a major Canadian financial institution around SSI, and I think that in and of itself is a huge testament to the acceptance that has now come to the space, right? If you were talking,
I guess it just needed time to marinate.
right,
You needed time for success stories to come out and for guys like George to say, wow, hey, that company just used to do that. Maybe we should be okay. So it just needed time to marinate, and it's like a fine wine, but that's what's happening right now to blockchain.
And speaking to the the marinade process, it is COOs and CTOs and their fringe innovation tech teams having the time to do some diligence on the technology before wasting other corporate resources, engaging with a third party like ourselves to help them figure out how they can use it. And after going through that diligence internally, they realized, there really is a lot of potential here for us. And so we should start to identify targets around which, use cases around which we can try to do some pilots. And then that's kind of the point at which they start to engage with us.
What does it mean for your credibility? And you don't have to do a deep dive into the actual relationships because I know there's a lot there. But what does it do for your credibility that you've got a partnership with Binance, right? Who's everybody knows is just a monster, and the quote large Canadian financial institution that you haven't disclosed. I don't even know who it is, but what does that do for your business? Because to me, third party validation. Everyone at Agoracom hears me talk about that all the time. It can't just be Dan telling me he's got a good blockchain company. Who else agrees with that? And clearly, Binance and this large Canadian financial institution agree with that. What does it do for your credibility when you're walking into other meetings? And people saying, well, who else do you guys work with? I mean, does it instantly get people's attention?
It definitely does. And really, honestly, it's a combination of not only the clients we're working with, but what we're working with them on, right? If we were to say we're working with a major Canadian financial institution on standing up their own ICO, they'd probably be like, meh. But we have a lot of potential clients interested in the self-sovereign identity space. And so being able to say, not only was blockchain Foundry fundamental in the development of the specification for decentralized identity, but we're also hands-on implementing it with a major Canadian financial institution and other organizations as well. And so we're not just someone who has come into the SSI space looking to, pad our books with some additional work. We're people who really believe in what the mission behind SSI is. We're firsthand experience in helping to even shape and mold what that looks like. And then we have the boots on the ground experience of helping to implement that for real major clients, right? And so I think all three of those pieces are sort of key in establishing our expertise and validating our experience. And all three of those together are really what help prospective clients engage with us further.
So last question, you said that earlier on that beware, there are new pretenders that are starting to rise again. And I guess there will always be some, right? At least
Yeah.
it's not the craze that we saw back in 2000, late 2017, mid 2018, where just everybody's from blockchain to their press releases. But why is blockchain, aside from what we've talked about here, why is Blockchain Foundry the small cap blockchain company that people should be taking a look at?
So there's a few reasons, right? I think one is that we have a track record to speak to, right? We have clients in a number of different spaces that blockchain can be, is well suited for from a use case perspective. And those use cases are not all focused in one area. It's not all remittance or all value transfer or all smart contracts. We have actually a pretty healthy spectrum of different use cases for blockchain technology that we have firsthand experience in, right? Additionally, we are one of, if not the only small cap blockchain company that's public that has their own protocol, right? Syscoin is a blockchain protocol similar to Bitcoin that Blockchain Foundry has essentially been the primary developer of. It is open source, so it is open to others contributing to it.
Sure.
And us pulling innovations from other blockchains into it. But there are a lot of innovations at the protocol level of Syscoin that Blockchain Foundry has added only after experience with clients where they've identified certain protocol level things as pain points for them, whether that be a pain point with Ethereum or a pain point with Bitcoin or a pain point with Hyperledger. They're giving us these, well, we would love to use that if it only had this, right? And so we're taking those pieces and actually building them into Syscoin. And then, what we're looking to do long term is build products on top of Syscoin that expose those features to users, again, in that way that makes the blockchain fade into the background, but it provides these large organizations with the capabilities they need in order to use blockchain in their business, right? And so that is really a big focus for us, and what we're looking to do to kind of move things from primarily consulting right now to being more of a product-based company. And we'll still be doing consulting, but as we make this pivot from a consulting company to more of a product-based company, again, these products based directly on market feedback, so we know the market's ready for them.
Right. And product is leverage, right? Because you can scale product around the world. You can't scale consulting. I mean, consulting is great, but you can't scale it as fast as you can a product that people love and say, yeah, let's license that or let's buy that.
Right. Well, and also consulting gets complicated in this space just because it is so diverse. You get, one client wanting Ethereum, one client wanting Hyperledger, one client wanting their own custom chain, and already it becomes difficult to manage, right?
Yeah, I like the idea of a product. Sometimes the simpler you make it for the end user, the better at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that product is really, focused right now. We're thinking the focus is going to be around stable coins and regulatory compliance. You look at, stable coins are going to definitely be stable coins, or even centrally backed digital currencies, CBDCs, which are essentially stable coins that are backed by a central bank. What our product is really going to be focused on is making life easier for those players so that they can provide those types of solutions to the market, CBDCs, stable coins, what have you, that can be used around the world in a regulatory compliant way. Whereas right now, there are all kinds of roadblocks and holdups when trying to use even stable coins that exist today in different countries, right? And so we've developed a solution that helps to remediate the challenges there. And we're now working on essentially building, a product on top of that and a nice front end and everything that makes the blockchain fade into the background, provides banks and other major organizations that are producing these products with the tooling they need in order to be on the right side of regulations. And our consulting arm will essentially shift a bit into being more of an integrator of our own product into these existing systems,
Makes sense.
rather than it being jack of all trades kind of consultancy.
Look, blockchain is so new, so robust. You guys are growing. We could talk for another hour. We could probably easily, right?
Yeah.
So we'll kind of end it there. But the last, I want to leave final thoughts with you, which is you're ending off 2020 on what looks like is going to be, if your Q3 and your 9-month numbers are an indication, you guys are going to be ending up the year in a nice position.
Yeah.
What do you see for the company in 2021? How do you see 2021 playing out?
I think you're going to start seeing more actual products in 2021 and stories about pilot engagements with, everyone from financial institutions to governments to private organizations using these products and success stories around those, or challenges and improvements that we're going to make to the product coming out of those engagements. There'll definitely be some new clients signing on because we're going to continue to run this standard consulting practice until our products start to really get some traction. But I think that, the big difference you're going to see in Blockchain Foundry's news over 2021 versus its history to date is going to be a lot more focused on our pivot to a product-based company than it is just about more random new clients, right? We'll still have those clients, but we're going to start to try to change the narrative to be more about clients using our products and us implementing that product within their organization instead of us building something, completely green fields for a client unrelated to our
one-off. More. Well, I'm excited about that. The fact that you're saying that, I really like that because that makes a lot of sense. And we'll kind of leave it there, man, because you guys had a great 2020, and I like the fact that you're moving. What I heard there, was a lot more. That's what
yeah. There's definitely a
lot more out of Blockchain Foundry in 2021. Thanks for joining us, Dan.
Thanks for having me, George. Looking forward to future conversations.
You've been watching Dan Wasiluk, or if you've been listening by podcast at Spotify, Google, Apple, or your favorite podcaster, you've been watching or listening to him talk about Blockchain Foundry. Look, we know there's a lot of information to absorb. It's a lot for us to absorb. It's a lot for companies to absorb because we're all starting to learn. We're all really trying to learn about blockchain. But look, you saw the quotes at the beginning of this presentation. That's why I put that there. All those quotes. You saw Vitalik from Ethereum. You saw Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan. You saw Jack Ma, Alibaba. These are three of the world's most renowned people in the technology space. Even Jamie with their own coin that they're coming out with at JP Morgan. They're not just a bank.
Which is funny
because telling you this stuff.
Just funny because just a year ago their tune was different on that.
Oh yeah, they were smashing Bitcoin, and I know why. I was smart. They want to keep, they want to keep the momentum down, give themselves time to build their thing, which isn't that funny, right, Dan? Is that but the fact of the matter is he's there. They're all there. So look, if you got those three, and those are just three of many examples, we couldn't give you 10. If you got those three saying this about the future blockchain, then it behooves you to start doing your own due diligence, your own research. I know it's hard. And in the future, I'll have Dan back on. We'll actually talk about some specific use cases because he mentioned that. So hopefully what we'll do is just talk about specific use cases that people can relate to, make life easier to understand. But get to Agoracom, punch in the company's name or stock symbol, BCFN. We've got the profile page there to kind of help you summarize all this and start to absorb what blockchain is and specifically what Blockchain Foundry is. Then hop over to the company's website, which you can do from Agoracom, and do a little more due diligence because trust me, I can't tell you where Blockchain Foundry is going to be in 5 years. I'm hoping and I'm thinking it's got a very good chance at being a really nice player in the space, but there's no doubt that blockchain is going to grow. And hopefully what you found in Blockchain Foundry was your vehicle to help you participate in that growth over the next 2-3 years. So thanks for joining us, everyone. Don't say we didn't tell you so. You got to go do your due diligence, and we'll see you next time.